So I became coroner in January 2017. Throughout the entire year of 2017, we had 13 opioid-related overdoses. So far as of October 1st of 2018, we've had 20 this year. And so we are looking at possibly doubling the opioid deaths from 2017 to 2018.
About 15 years ago when I was a road officer, we were probably, each officer was probably doing about 150 reports a year. Now it's probably in excess of 350 reports per officer per year. It's hard to find a crime in which there's not a connection to drugs, to the opioid crisis and to the meth crisis and things like that.
Well, since the opioids have become prevalent in Poplar Bluff, the amount of burglaries, domestic disputes, family interruptions have increased, I think, significantly. It's been a big problem for us. It's been going on for about probably 10 years, but it's accelerated to a point that it's very serious.
Okay. So just tell us a little bit about your story and how you got involved with opioids.
Yeah, he was born June 16th, 1996 here in Poplar Bluff. So he turned 22 this past June. He went to Sacred Heart through 6th grade, preschool through 6th grade. And then, I guess really starting in 6th grade, I sent him to Missouri Military Academy up in Mexico, Missouri. And he was up there for 5 years?
6th through 10th grade, so yeah, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
While I was up there, we would smoke K2 and go and get triple C's. We could go to Walmart, so we, take cough medicine and sneak alcohol in every now and again and just kind of do stuff that what we thought kids did,
They may have started with marijuana and drinking and meth and cocaine, but they graduate up to fentanyl and opioids, and that's what's taking them out.
I stayed in Poplar Bluff and finished out high school there my junior and senior year, and immediately, before junior year even started, I was going to parties and was drinking and smoking weed, and Molly was real big, and ecstasy, and was doing a lot of that and doing some cocaine and a lot of party stuff, and that quickly got out of control.
And according to him, he started with pills, and then from there it just, blossomed into heroin. And
while I was still 16, heroin started getting big in Poplar Bluff, and I tried it for the first time. It was little beans back then in capsules, and I tried it, man, outside in the high school parking lot with a buddy of mine, and he's dead now.
To me, it's a no-brainer. Having to go tell parents or grandparents or siblings and children that their loved one has died is obviously one of the hardest jobs as the coroner. In cases like this is usually the end result of years and years of narcotic abuse, and the family has done everything they can in their power every step of the way, and at this point they feel like they failed. Even though they haven't failed, they feel like they have.
I would try to think, well, where did I go wrong? Because I got custody of both boys when they were really young. And so, I raised them, and I tried to be, very involved in their life. Tried to be a good father. And I think immediately, whenever all this started happening, then I felt like I had failed and done something wrong. And it took me a long time to realize that, between the two of us, we raised 4 kids. And that I don't think I did anything wrong. I think Zach somewhere made a poor choice.
And I never considered myself a weak person, but it doesn't matter how, the stronger I thought I was, the weaker I got, it seemed like. And, since then I've overdosed 6 times.
Well, an opioid overdose essentially looks like somebody that's asleep. An overdose, one of the things an opioid does is decrease respiratory drive. And so what will happen in an overdose, people will go from normal to a little bit listless, then very sleepy, then they'll typically, pass out, hit the floor, slump over a chair, and eventually stop breathing. So an overdose that is most apparent is somebody that's not breathing down somewhere.
I overdosed my first time. I was down in Florida. That first time, whenever I woke up, I was in the hospital, and man, I'll never forget it. Of course, they're so busy down there. I didn't have a room, so I was on a bed in the hallway, and there was an old couple in the room directly in front of me, and the old man, I don't know exactly what it was, but he had just found out he was real sick. I just remember that, and his wife, again, they were real old. His wife was leaning over and she was crying and she was hugging him, and he was, he was just trying to be strong and comfort her, telling her it was going to be okay. And all I remember thinking, man, I started crying, and all I remember thinking was, this guy's fighting for his life and I'm throwing mine away.
Man, it was awful sitting there, every night going to bed and wondering if he was going to overdose during the night. In the mornings when I got up and you go to knock on his door to wake him up, and you get ready to knock on the door and you turn around and you back up and you walk away and then you go back. And I would hate to try to wake him up because you don't know if he's going to be dead that morning or not. Every night you go to bed wondering if he was going to be alive the next morning.
And that first overdose, it really I think affected me. But it obviously wasn't enough for me to quit, And I've, since the first one, I've overdosed 5 times.
Actually, Regina and I were sitting here. He came in, went upstairs, and within about 3 or 4 minutes, we heard a loud crash.
And I said, Zach, you better go check on him.
So I called his cell phone. He didn't answer. Didn't hear any noise, so I went up there and knocked on the door, and he didn't answer. So I opened up the door, and he was in the bathroom.
And the next thing I remember is Zach yelling, Regina! And I knew at that point, something was wrong. So I immediately went to our bathroom and got the Narcan.
Imagine an opioid receptor that has a molecule of either heroin or morphine or something in it. And what Narcan does, it's a molecule that fits in the same opioid receptor. And what happens, it has actually a greater affinity for that receptor than whatever drug is in there. So as it comes along the bloodstream, it will actually kick the other molecule out, sit in the receptor, and essentially stop that whole cascade of metabolic issues or metabolic functions that happen to cause the effect of opioids. And as soon as the Narcan's in that site, the person wakes up in the next 15, 30, 45 seconds.
And that was the first time he overdosed.
Here.
Yeah, here at home. And then he overdosed March the 20th of this year here. Now, that was a little bit worse. We didn't think we were going to bring him back that time.
My last time overdosing was March 20th. I got in the ministry April 1st, but that night after I got out of the ER, my family sat down and they all came over and we planned my funeral.
And Regina suddenly started hollering, everyone get down here, get down here.
Yes.
And so Regina had everyone sit down here on the couch. And
well, I went nuts. I said, everybody on the couch right now. I was yelling and screaming, and they all were sitting here, and I got a piece of paper and a pen, and I said, okay. I said, let's plan your funeral. I said, because you're going to die.
She was asking me what songs I wanted played, and
I said, so who do you want to preach at your funeral? And I was really harsh. I was very harsh. I regret that. I really regret that today, but I guess it was an impact on him.
I pictured my family at my funeral, and I tried to picture their life after that, and it hit me how selfish I was, you know what I mean? and how, I mean, I was just wallowing around in pity. You know what I mean? I was always the victim, you know, and that's the mentality I had. You know, I felt I loved my family, and I'd say I'd do anything for them, and and I was tired of hurting them, but I didn't do anything about it, you know. And I think those are just excuses that we make up in our heads to keep going, you know. But it's all a lie, you know. It's all a lie.
You can see the brokenness in him. You can see that he's tired and the hopelessness, and would rather be dead than to hurt anybody that loves him anymore. When you can look into him and see that, that's when you want to take, okay, he's ready, come on in.
And so I went back to jail, and my cellie was a graduate from here. And he got to telling me about John 3:16, and he was talking very highly of it, you know. And at first I was like, you know, it's not for me. Again, I didn't think that there was help for me. I kind of thought it's just who I was. But the more he talked to me, the more I kind of, you know, the more he encouraged me to get into my word, you know, and I was just thinking about everything, and one night, and you know, I'd been reading my Bible, and I'd read my Bible in the past, but I never really got any of it, if that makes sense. And one night I was thinking about my life and thinking about planning my funeral with my family, and just thinking about everything, all the birthdays that I missed, and all the things I was gonna miss. And man, I just wanted something different for the first time. I wanted change so badly. I think that was the first time in my life I wanted change more than I wanted to get high. Anyways, I got down on my knees in that jail cell, man, and I told God, I said, if you help me through this, whatever comes, whether I go to prison or whatever happens, if you help me change my desires and change my life, I will live the rest of my life for you.
Jesus and blind Bartimaeus. Blind Bartimaeus comes to Jesus, and Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? Well, he's blind, so maybe, you know, make me see again. But I think Jesus asked the question, what do you want me to do for you, in a subtle way of, if I do this, your life is never going to be the same again.
You know, I think at a lot of other places I've been to, they kind of pamper you during that time. And what I love about here is they make you push through it, you know? So like whenever I wasn't feeling good, or whenever I was down, or, you know, we just kept working, you know? And I hated it at the time. I hated it. But man, I grew so much through that.
And John 3:16 has changed his whole life. I mean, I think it gave him what he needed to pull through this. And, you know, I think there is hope out there. People will just keep hanging in there and keep fighting. And, you know, you can't give up or they'll die.
Once I started believing that, man, my whole life has changed, you know? And my family, you know, as I look around, whenever I get visits, and Melina's hands are in the air praising God, and my dad's crying. He's not gonna like that. But when you know, my family's crying and they got their hands in the air, and we go down there to the altar and pray as a family, man, there's nothing like it in the world.
I kept thinking that he was being saved for some reason.
Yeah.
I kept thinking that, you know, I mean, there's got to be a purpose for this. And I really feel today that the purpose is that Zach's going to do great, and he is going to help other people.
It hit me that I always do make it through the day, and I'm still not high. I'm still not stealing stuff. You know, that I can do this, you know, and then I started getting my joy back, and then after about 3 months, man, I just wanted to give it to others.